Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I realize it is not a pleasant experience to be sitting for an hour immediately after lunch, but we will try and entertain you as much as possible. Thank you, Hari, for the wonderful intro and for kicking it off, and thank you for agreeing to moderate this motley crew of disruptors. I'm so much passionate about the whole concept of disruption, I asked for a calendar instead of a clock, but I have 15 minutes. So I just picked two topics, which is very close to my heart. One of them being, what is the characteristics of a disruptor? What makes a disruptor disruptor? And what can incumbent companies do when disruption hits them? Brian Chesky. Anybody here heard of Brian Chesky? He couldn't pay his rent for a given month. He realized he had an extra room, and by putting 3 mattresses on the floor and by renting the space out, he could make enough money to pay his rent. And guess what happened? Airbnb was formed. All he did was rent out a room, put 3 mattresses, a company was formed. Brian Chesky was not trying to disrupt the hotel industry. That was not his intention. He was not even close. He was not even trying to compete with the hotel industry. The hotel industry happened to be the collateral damage for Brian Chesky's Airbnb. They just happened to be the victim of a nobody in the hotel industry who came from the left field and completely took him over. Think about it. On any given day, 400,000 people, 4 lakh people stay in an Airbnb registered property. On weekends and vacations, it goes up to 1 million, 10 lakh people. Think about it for a moment. That is 10 lakh rooms that the hotel industry has now lost to one company called Airbnb. Tomorrow, when there are 10 more Airbnbs, imagine there are going to be 10 million rooms that will no longer be available to the hotel industry anymore. Disruptors come from the left field, and they are not even trying to compete with you. They are not even trying to compete with the incumbent companies at all. I was listening to Sir Jonathan Ive's interview. Sir Jonathan Ive is the CDO, Chief Design Officer of Apple. And something that he said caught my attention, something he said very profound. He said, when Steve Jobs is designing something, whether it is the iPod or the iPad, he doesn't do it for competing with anybody. He does it for the childlike joy of simple designing, period. But of course, you know what happened with the iPad and the iPod and the iPhone. It took the industry by storm. Steve Jobs was not trying to compete with anybody. So disruption, your competition, your regular competition is not going to be your disruptor. 1. 2, in the traditional product space, in the traditional innovation space, when a new product comes out, customers rush in to adopt them. So this economist, Everett Rogers, he classifies customers into 5 different distinct phases. People who adopt them early to very late. So he calls them innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and the laggards. 5 distinct customer phases. That was yesterday. Today, there are only 2 customer segments: trial users and the rest of us. Trial users and the rest of us. And we have become so desperate, now we are paying money to be a trial user. How? When you're trying to raise money using crowdfunding, when you're using sites like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, you're paying money to an upcoming startup. And these startups don't give you equity in the company. Instead, they give you the right to test their products firsthand. So now you're paying money to become a trial user. The earlier philosophy, tenets of product building, dictated that there are 3 pillars: faster, better, cheaper. And companies could choose 2, but not all the 3. You could be faster, you could be better, or you could be cheaper. Pick 2 of the 3. If you try to do all the 3, it's going to be a disaster. Disruptive companies today have proven that is not true any longer. They're able to do all the 3 at the same time and give out some great products. When I first moved to the US, I used to call India through AT&T. It used to cost me 60 cents a minute. Talk for 10 minutes, I lose $6. Talk for 1 hour, I lose $60. I had several friends who refused to call their parents in India because they said, if we save that money over a year, they had enough money to come to India, spend a month with their parents, go back and still have money left for paying rent. Fast forward a few years, today we have Skype, Google Talk, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp Messenger, and you can talk for free. It doesn't get any better than free, does it? AT&T's market share was stolen right from under their noses, even when they were still looking. Here is the point though. If that is the case, if disruptors are coming from the left field and completely obliterating the existing playing field, what can incumbent companies do? How do they respond? I'm just going to give you one small example before I move on. In 2001, Napster, the peer-to-peer music sharing company, was shut down by the music industry. And once it was shut down, the music industry was happy that they now have shut down the competitor, and now they could launch their digital distribution on their own timetable without knowing that the same year Apple iTunes started distributing digital music, and now you know what happened to iTunes, a runaway success. So the death of Napster did not mean anything to the industry itself. It was only a warning signal to the rest of the industry that digital distribution of music is here to stay. So if you are an incumbent company, the death of a startup is not something to be happy about. It is a warning signal that the competitors are moving into your space. So what can incumbent companies do? 3 things, I will just make it very, very quick. 1, if you cannot disrupt yourself, go acquire somebody who is already disrupting. Large companies, I used to work for Visa for 10 years. Visa had a venture capital arm that used to invest in payment startups, right from 5% up to any number of percentage. And as these companies grew, as the technology became established, they will just go in and acquire the company or continue to invest more for a higher stake in the company. So either you invest or you acquire. That is one way to disrupt. The second way to disrupt would be buy time. How do you buy time? By introducing a product that is an intermediary between the disruptors and yours. Case in point is Toyota. Toyota's Prius. 10, 20 years from today, majority of the cars on the road are going to be electric cars. Toyota did not have an electric car technology, so what did they do? The second best thing, they introduced the Prius, which is a hybrid, a halfway between gasoline and completely electric cars. So by doing that, they did 2 things. 1, they bought themselves some time till such time they can have a great electric car technology. And 2, they are now priming the market, the customer base, to be ready when their technology finally comes out. Take cloud computing for that matter. When cloud computing first came into the market, financial companies wouldn't go near cloud computing simply because they did not consider it to be secure. Cloud computing pundits responded by introducing what is called a hybrid cloud. They said, keep your sensitive data within your company in private servers and put the non-sensitive information on the public cloud. They came up with a hybrid approach, buying themselves some time to prove the security worthiness of the public cloud. Another case in point, digital photography. When digital photography came into the picture, Nikon and Canon could not completely introduce a 100% digital camera. So what did they do? They married the parts from analog camera, married the parts from digital camera, put it together, call it a digital SLR, which still rules the roost in that particular category. Eventually, they will have a grand enough technology for professional camera in the digital space. Till then, they have bought themselves the time to introduce a digital camera. Third thing that incumbent companies do, the least desirable and the one that I don't recommend, is what I call block and tackle. If you cannot do anything, simply throw a lawsuit at them. Simply throw a lawsuit at the disruptor. What happened to Napster? What is currently happening to Uber? The taxi industry does not know how to respond. So what they do, they just throw lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit on Uber just to keep them at bay, thinking either they will vanish or they can contain, buy some more time. Think Airbnb. The hotel industry is suing Airbnb over and over and over just to keep them contained. But if one Airbnb can be shut down, 10 more will spring up, so disruptors are here to stay. A lot more can be said, but thank you for listening.